I just heard the news of the Denver Nuggets firing Michael Malone, their head coach. And I just want to say that these head coach firings in the NBA with Michael Malone and Taylor Jenkins from the Memphis Grizzlies, I think, while I'm not necessarily against the team evaluating themselves and moving off of a coach, I think the way that these coaching firings have been done have been really ridiculous, and I think it's a bad look for a lot of people involved. And the reason that I say that is because you just look at the timing of these coach firings and the fact that they're coming towards the end of the season right before the playoffs. I mean, I know it's no secret that the Memphis Grizzlies and the Denver Nuggets haven't necessarily played their best basketball this year, but my logic would be that if you get this far in a season with the coach in place, why not just take it into the playoffs, see what happens, and then make a coaching change at the end of the season? I don't think that making a coaching change now is drastically going to change the way that you play. And the main reason that I say that is because so much of the NBA is personnel related. For all of the schemes and all of the changes that people would want their teams to make, you have to have the personnel in order to do it. And so sometimes you got to look at the team themselves and say, do we have the personnel to actually play the way we want to play? Or do we have the person? We might have talent. Like in Memphis's case, you have a lot of talent, but is that talent really the right fit for what we're trying to do? Like, you have to kind of evaluate that. And so to me, it's like I don't necessarily feel like these coaching firings are something that is going to change a lot with these teams. So I feel like firing these guys right before the playoffs is really ridiculous. Because I look at it and I know this is another sport, but I think about Tom Coughlin with the Giants, and I think about how in a lot of seasons, the Giants were never really the most dominant team in the league. They were always a team that kind of like they started out well, then maybe they faded down the stretch. And yes, some seasons they didn't perform well in the postseason, but they also won 2 Super Bowls because they got hot at the right time. And I know that in the NBA, like I said before, it's a lot about talent and it's a lot about having the right mix of guys and everything like that. But if you do have talent, like in Denver's case, you have Nikola Jokic. Like, you never know what can happen. Maybe he can just carry you to a championship. Maybe a couple teams match up with each other that you didn't think would match up with each other. And, one team gets taken out. And then, in the next round, that team is the team that won that series is gassed and you face them. You never know what can happen. You can always go on a run and you could end the season a lot better than you thought you were going to end the season. So, and even still at that point, it's fair to make an evaluation of your team, your situation, where you think it's headed, and you could still make a change at that point. But it's almost as if firing a coach at this point in the season, you don't want them to go on that run to where you feel like you have to bring them back. I'll give you another example of this, actually. And this might be why some of these owners are making a move. I remember last season, Manchester United soccer, football in England, for those of you who don't follow it, they won the FA Cup, which is the premier, knockout competition in the country of England. And Eric Ten Hag was on the hot seat because they weren't performing that great in the league. They ended up keeping him, and the start of this year did not go well, and the season as a whole has not gone well. They ended up firing him. They ended up bringing in a new manager. So I can understand front offices, ownership groups not wanting to get into a situation like that where somebody gets hot at the end of the season and then they convince you that maybe they should get another shot next year. I can understand that to a certain degree. But I think if that was your thinking, I don't think that it's right to fire somebody with a week left in the season. Because if they are going to get knocked out in the first round, at this point, you're basically firing them. You're firing them before you give them, say, 3 to 4 games at the end of the season. And then let's say they get eliminated in 6 games or maybe even in the play-in tournament. Less than 10 games. You're giving them less than 10 games, essentially. So, I mean, is it the worst thing in the world to give them that? Because I also think like this, is that if you fire a coach, right, and you let that coach go, it could affect who you get in the future. You know, I was saying this in regards to Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks because there are a lot of people that are discussing his status, and they're basically saying if the Knicks get eliminated early in the playoffs in the first round or they get beat up in the second round by Boston, that, you know, Thibodeau might have to go. And I said, look, it's 100% fair to evaluate a head coach in the offseason after you've seen everything play out. But if you're going to do that, you also have to take into consideration roster construction, injuries, stuff like that. And just overall, because of the new CBA, you have to take into consideration what exactly was given to him to try and win with. So to me, if you fire a coach, and in Tibbs' case, if you get rid of a coach who has helped turn around the culture and really make this team a consistent winner, you know, it'll be 4 out of 5 years in the playoffs. They've won playoff rounds. They've won playoff rounds already in 2 of the years that they've made the playoffs. We'll see what happens this year. But if you're going to fire that coach, the one thing you shouldn't do is you shouldn't embarrass him, because he did do a lot to help you turn around your team, turn around your culture. And if you embarrass him, what ends up happening is that might affect who you can get in the future. Because other coaches, and look, coaches will always stick together. Even if they think that another coach isn't necessarily the best out there, they will always stick together because they know that the same thing can happen to them. So if you fire a coach and you embarrass that coach, what could end up happening is that you may not get the coach that you actually want to replace that coach. And you could end up in a situation where you have to settle with somebody that you don't want. And if you settle with somebody that you don't want, it could lead to a lot more trouble down the road. So what I'll say about these coach firings in general is that I think they're terrible. I think it's a bad look for the league that coaches are being scapegoated, especially in this manner. And I think going forward, we're going to have to figure out something to address a lot of the issues in the league. Either we're going to have to give these teams more of an ability to maneuver to, you know, fix their rosters, or we're just going to have people that handle situations like this way better, because I don't think that this is it. I don't think this is how these things should be handled. And I think that it needs to stop before it really gets out of hand.